Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Sophie, and we are here to help guide you to the why behind your wellness why.
Come join us on our journey.
Welcome to today's podcast on Wellness Why. We have a wonderful guest, Ryan, today.
Hello, hello. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thanks for hopping on.
Yes, we are so excited to hear more about your story. I know you have a wonderful one. So let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about yourself today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from the west suburbs of Chicago. I'm from Willowbrook, Illinois. So I grew up, both of my parents were teachers. I have one older brother who's 2 years older than me. And I was the one that was into all of the sports. So as far back as I can remember, I was always playing something. So from when I got started out, it was soccer, baseball, basketball, everything. I was in gymnastics for a little bit. And then football came into play around sixth or seventh grade, which I really started to gravitate towards. And then in high school, I did football, basketball, and track throughout my high school careers. So those were the three that I really wanted to move forward with. And those are the ones that I gravitated towards, not only because I accelerated at them, but I enjoyed the team aspect of them as well, the camaraderie and everything that came with it. So I was a three-sport athlete throughout high school. And then when it came to deciding on a college decision, I wasn't sure how the athletic recruiting process actually worked as a student athlete. That was something that was foreign to me at the time. So it kind of came and went before I even knew it was happening. So I went on one visit to North Central in Naperville for football and track, and I just didn't see myself going to a smaller school that close to home. So I opted for the bigger school experience and went on to study business at the University of Iowa.
Growing up in Chicago, my mom wanted me to go to UIC so she could drive by and honk when I was on my way to class. So you made the right choice.
Yes. Far, but not too far. Far enough.
Right?
Mm-hmm. So from there, I went on to, study business at the University of Iowa. But even that was a big transition for me because I went from doing all these sports nonstop throughout my high school career to just being a student in college. So kind of left in some space that I was looking to fill with something from like a team aspect or competitive aspect. I was still working out like throughout my college career, but kind of just like going with the flow. Or when I feel like this is very common when you're initially getting started out and like working out, you do it solely for the aesthetics. And I was just looking to move weight, whatever it was, felt good when I was going to the gym. So then I started to get more and more into it further down the road. As I graduated from college with my business degree, I started working out in sales. But that was something like, even while I was in these sales positions, I was still waking up at 5 a.m. to work out before work. I still liked that structure and having that routine down in my day-to-day. So
Well, power to you for keeping that routine.
right. I don't mind waking up early though. So that's part of my jam.
You kind of already mentioned this, but was it a pretty hard transition to go from being in so many sports to then not?
Definitely. I had more free time than I knew what to do with myself. So even my freshman year at the University of Iowa, I was entertained the idea of transferring to go play football somewhere. But ultimately, that didn't pan out. So I stuck it out at the University of Iowa for 4 years, which I'm very happy with. But it was definitely a huge adjustment. I went from basically just rolling throughout my high school career, one season to the other nonstop. And then I just had, like I said, so much downtime. So that was completely new to me.
Did, Did you look into club sports or did they have any there?
Yes, and they were fairly competitive, just with Iowa being a large university. So I did play intramurals throughout college, which definitely helps. So that was flag football, basketball. I did go to a rugby practice, but that was about very short-lived. But yeah, basketball, pickup basketball, that was my main go-to throughout college. That was a ton of fun. So, and we had a good group of friends that we can just go pick. Basketball is easy. You just need a ball and you can go play. Like, don't need necessarily a ton of equipment.
Yeah. So how was the transition after college?
That was it was interesting because I'm in the whole corporate America deal. So you're working a job, and then, like I said, I would always work out in the morning before my workday would start. So that was something that I did enjoy. Of course, just getting the day off started and kind of getting that routine down, knock it out, so then you don't have to worry about it after your workday when I'm tired and exhausted. So that was good. That was still just like strength training, I would say, resistance training. No longer training just like doing the classic bro split, but just starting to entertain more modalities here, what kind of interests me, and just playing around with those. But very consistent. I was working out like 5 days a week, 5 to 6 days a week still. So then in June of 2018 is when I say that I really started my adult fitness journey, just with a little more intention, because I've always been active and had working out or strength training as a part of my life for quite some time now, but this was just going to be more detailed and specific. So in June of 2018, I remember I had just walked through the turnstile of the FFC at Lincoln Park, and I had received a call from my mom, and I could just tell by her tone that something was up. So I was informed I had to go out to the suburbs and check in on my dad, which to my knowledge, I wasn't sure really what I was walking into. My father lived alone at the time, and he is an alcoholic. So last time that I had spoke to him was right around Christmas or seen him. So about 6 months have passed now to this point when I have to go out and check on him. So my mind is kind of racing as I'm heading out to the suburbs to see like what's going on. I'm not sure if I'm just going to have a sit down chat with him, kind of check and see how things are going. I'm not really sure what I'm walking into. So by the time that I make my way from the city to the suburbs, I get out there, take a train, get over to where he's staying. And then as I arrive, I see him in the driveway. He's in the car getting ready to back out. So I come up to the driver's side window, and he was in no condition to be driving. He was intoxicated at the time. So I did like a quick walkthrough. I like had him give me the keys, and I did a quick walk through the house just to see what was going on, like what's unfolding right now. So I then fast forward, I walk him over to the passenger side of the car, and I just take him to the emergency room. And next thing you know, I'm pushing him in a wheelchair in a detox with a police escort. And I'm getting asked a lot of questions here that I just really, at the time, I didn't know the answers to. So I know I was being asked if I was the power of attorney. So moving forward from this day, I did wear that hat and just take on a lot more responsibility in his well-being and making sure that everything was being handled in that sense.
How old were you at this time?
So at the time, the day that I went out to his house, I was 25 years old. I was 25, and I'm 30 years old now. I just turned 30 in July.
Me too. Sorry.
Yeah.
July birthdays.
July birthdays. There we go. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah. So that was an intense day overall. And I remember when I had left that day, I just sat in the car. I was by myself now at this point. I sat in the car, and for what seemed like a really long time, I sat there for probably 15 minutes or so, just kind of like thinking back on what just transpired here. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, I know that I am not going to end up like this. I am capable of more, and I deserve more. So I'm going to demand more from life. And that was a day like I really like committed to myself, like I didn't even know what it was at the time I was committing to, but I'm just going to go rip it. Like I'm going to do more, whatever it is that I can do, I'm going to go get it. So at that time, this is before High Rocks and Deca were as prominent as they are today in the hybrid racing space. So at the time, that thing that I wanted to compete for was American Ninja Warrior. So I just started doing the craziest shit I could do. It was like, I'm going to go train and I'm going to see what comes of this. So I remember the day after that Saturday, when I was at the hospital with him, I was still out in the suburbs. I went to the football field and I was like, what's the craziest thing, like workout that I could get on film? So I strapped ankle weights on. I was doing hurdle hops straight over, like highest notch you could set on the hurdle, hop over that, and then straight into handstand walk, 10 yards, tuck and roll out of that, and then sprint at the field goal post, jump up and do pull-ups. So I would just video this stuff and see if it would work. Like I was trying to put together a highlight film to send into American Ninja Warrior.
That's awesome.
Talk us through what happened after all of that.
It was wild. So I was like, all right, I need to get my hands on these actual obstacles and see if I can actually do this and get more comfortable with them, whatever the case may be. So I just Google American Ninja Warrior gyms Chicago, like see what we got. So sure enough, there is one that I stumble upon and it says they have an open gym. So I call them to confirm. They're like, yeah, it's $5. You sign the waiver, you're good to go. So I go and I show up, sign the waiver, pay the fee, and I walk in and they've got everything. I'm like, this is nuts. All right. So walk in, meet a couple guys there. I meet Michael Torres and Ethan Swanson, who I did not know at the time, but they are like the ninjas. They've been on the show, they compete regularly, and for many seasons, this is what they do. Ethan's like a full-time like stunt guy. He's got videos of him like running over rooftops, hanging from a bridge with one hand, like all this crazy shit. So I would just go every Tuesday. They would have open gym. I would go and do these obstacles and I would just ask these guys questions, like just give me a tip on this or just show me how to do this, whatever it is. So one of the things that Ethan would say almost every time I would ask him for a question or was just, you just have to commit to it. So you can do it, or like, sure, there's a little bit of technique, but you just have to mentally commit to doing it. That's such a block in your mind. Once you say and allow yourself to actually try and go for it, you can see that you are capable of it. So like the warp wall, you're running up this warp wall, it's like 14 feet tall. So you're sprinting up it. And then sure enough, you do get the hang of it. But that was so fun. That's what introduced me to functional fitness. I remember seeing the words functional fitness on the wall there and thinking to myself like, huh, that's pretty cool. That seems interesting. What's going on there? So.
Yeah. And so at this time, were you working full-time still in sales?
Yes, I am still working full-time in sales. So still doing the job during the day. And then I'm still like strength training throughout all this. And then Ninja Warrior training ever so often when I'm able to get in there. So this is fall of 2018. And then, so things have just unfolded with my dad over the summer. And now, so I'm still keeping that in mind here, whether it's figuring out living situation, inpatient, outpatient options, or just whatever maybe at the time. So December of 2018, I had an aunt pass away unexpectedly from cancer complications. So the storm kind of started with my dad, I would say, and it just felt like there was a lot of things I just had to work through. So my dad, I brought him to the hospital in June of 2018, and then my aunt Karen passed away in December of 2018. In August of 2019, my aunt Lynn passed away. So those are two of my mom's sisters, which she lost in 9 months. And I just felt like I had to play a role in being there for my mom to like support her in this, because things are unfolding with my dad, and I have to just make sure that she knows that I'm there for her to support her. So that was certainly a lot. So my Aunt Lynn passed in August of 2019, and then my dad passed away in December of 2020 from alcoholism ultimately. So that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I'm still like training throughout all of this time here, but I've gotten more into personal training, and we can talk about this in a bit about how I connected to mentors and made that transition. But it was just a nonstop. I feel like I had a cloud over me for so long, and I was just always resorting to some kind of movement or training because that's when I just felt like I was at peace. I was able to clear my mind, and just I knew it was always dependable. It would always be there for me, an option that I can go to and just do whatever I wanted to do, and I would be bettering myself. So
Yeah.
Power for you for like keeping time for yourself through that hard time.
absolutely, it was definitely time management, but I knew if it didn't take place, it would have an effect on me mentally and physically. I just wouldn't be the same. So I wanted to make sure I kept that constant.
For sure.
Yes. So that I got in the fall of 2019. I'm a laggard with social media. Like this was new to me at the time, Instagram. So I stumbled across some guy who's posting workout videos. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I like his content. I like his style of workouts. Everything sounds good. He's accredited, yada, yada. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to shoot this guy a message. At the time, I'm not certified in personal training yet. I'm studying to pass my exam. So I shoot him a message, say I have a bunch of questions and I'm really just looking for some guidance. I'm like, I don't even know if he's going to see this thing. Who knows? And sure enough, he did respond. So I was able to connect with Josh Owens, who he was my first personal trainer that I hired and a mentor to me still to this day. So I sat down and met with him at Three Greens Market right by East Bank Club shortly after I shot that DM to him. And now, I mean, our relationship has evolved. Like I still view him as a mentor, of course, but we're better friends now at this point. I've seen him transition from living in the city to being a homeowner in the suburbs, getting married to Maria. I've seen him start a family now with their little nugget Carson. So it's been pretty wild to see how strong our relationship has grown just from that message that I sent. Like he didn't even have to respond, but he's been so influential in every aspect of me, from my own training to my personal training business. So I can't say enough good things about him. He was my first mentor that I found in the personal training space.
That's awesome. Sophie and I had a podcast about the pros and cons of social media, and I think this is a good pro example. We I talked about what one thing I love about social media is the connections, and it sounds like you have a great outcome of that.
You're exactly right. I think social media, when used for the right reasons, can be extremely beneficial. So, I mean, I know that's something that I lean into. I'm sure you all get message questions all the time, and I do try to be as responsive as possible just to help whatever it may be. So yeah, I definitely view that as another channel of communication that's going to give you direct access to whoever it may be, or if you're interested in a certain topic, somebody does something that you would like to do, just ask them.
Yeah, absolutely. How, I want to take a step back for a second, if you don't mind sharing, what was your process of deciding that you wanted to become certified as a personal trainer?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was, so I remember seeing the functional fitness on the wall at the Ninja Warrior gym. And at the time, like people knew that I was pretty habitual in my workout regimen. So I would already be receiving questions regarding workouts or different type of workouts, exercises, whatever the case may be. So that's when I started to entertain the idea like, hey, maybe I should get certified in this so I can be a little bit more professional in this sense. So I started to move forward with that in the fall of 2019. And that's when I reached out to Josh, and then I became certified in May of 2020. So that that transition was, there was the general interest. It was something I was passionate about and I enjoyed doing already. So I just decided to basically just take that up a notch and pursue getting certified.
So when did you transition from a corporate job to fitness as your main
Yeah.
job?
Yep. So I get certified, and now you have to remember this is like in the early stages of the pandemic. So the all the gyms were pretty much closed, or the options are extremely limited. So I get certified in May of 2020, and I'm like poking around to see like what opportunities are out there where I can just get some sort of experience. And I remember taking an outdoor class for a studio gym, and it was like all body weight movements. I just signed up to do it, and I was like, I can definitely coach this. So I spoke with that head coach after the class, got connected with the gym manager, got the whole spiel. Like at the time, hiring is frozen. We're not bringing on any more coaches right now. At the time, we'll keep you in mind, the whole yada yada. So I just kept coming around to that gym. And then this is while in November of 2020, my dad's health really starts to decline. And then he passes away on December 10th of 2020. So after that takes place, I'm pretty much ready to make the jump towards anything that I'm passionate about. So, which is personal training and health and wellness. So, because I could physically no longer do my sales job, I was just not invested in it mentally, physically. I was not there, and I knew I was comfortable. I'm capable of doing much more, and the legacy that I can build is deserving of so much more outside of me being comfortable in cruise control in this sales role. So I just spoke with Josh. I spoke with several other people who I grew to know in the health and wellness space. And then I just made that transition in February of 2021 to health and wellness full time. I took a position as a general manager with a corporate wellness company. And then I started coaching as well at that studio where I took that outdoor class.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So kind of dove all in at once.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So I was flying around my days I was working both of those jobs simultaneously. So my corporate wellness job was a full-time position. So my days would on like Tuesdays and Thursdays I would be in the building from 6 a.m. until about 2:30. I would then go to the studio where I would take a 4:30 class, and then I would coach the 5:30 and the 6:30 class. So I'm basically just like gone the whole day, like out running around. My backpack is filled with everything I need. So I'm just on the fly.
Did that lead to burnout at all?
Not necessarily. It was definitely a lot. And like, of course, like some days you have more energy than others, or you're feeling more into it than others. You can probably feel it when you're a coach and you're kind of just in that flow state. Like you're there, you're doing it, but kind of just going with it, you may not feel as present. So that comes from time to time. But I didn't experience any burnout. I think that's a testament to the people that I was surrounded by. I really enjoyed everything. Like it was all so new to me and so fun. I was just very happy with how things were going. So
Did it affect your workouts at all? Or did
it
you stay
definitely,
committed?
yeah. No, I was still working out, but it's definitely something you have to account for. Even now as a trainer, you pour so much into your clients and your classes. You have to make sure that you still have enough in the tank, because you don't want your workouts to be neglected here. So you have to make sure that you find time to account for those. So I was able to make it work, but it was definitely something I had to adjust to out of the gates.
Yeah, I totally get that. We're only as good as our self-care, right? No,
That's right.
I don't know.
That's right. One of my favorite coaches, Lauren, she told me this: you can't pour into somebody else's bucket if your bucket is empty.
It's true.
And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of freaking sense. So yeah, that really resonated with me. So I think about that still when I coach every day.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So this all happened like early 2021, correct?
Correct. Yes. Early
Okay.
2021. So I've been working with Josh now for quite some time. So our relationship is established. But in my corporate wellness position that I took, there was a fall summit. So we're still in 2021 here, fall summit, where we bring in speakers to present. It's kind of like a weekend deal. Just go over a lot of topics around health and wellness to get certifications, progress you in a certain aspect, whatever the case may be. And I was connected with this company called Live Better. So I definitely gravitated towards them because at the time I was looking for anything that was positive energy, because I was still feeling down from losing my dad and basically just experiencing trauma through all the loss that I had experienced. So I meet these guys, and after they speak, I go up and I start chatting with them. And I'm like, wow, these dudes are just like me. They're from like the neighboring towns that I grew up in. They do all the same shit that I do. So I really connected with them, and they were just genuine. So Jason Lobig and Brett Gornick have been extremely influential for me in the same deal as Josh, like whether it's my own training or as mentors in my personal training business. They've been so important to me to get me to where I am today now in my personal training career. So I'm so thankful that I was able to meet them. And again, that comes from me making the jump from the sales position, kind of taking the risk to transition to health and wellness full time and take that role with the corporate health and wellness company. And then I meet these guys. So that was definitely almost like reassuring. I would say that I was in the right place. You could just tell I was following my compass, and there was a reason why I met them there on that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super important to like create or find a support system, and it sounds like you were able to do that.
I think that's one of the biggest things you can do. Your reference group, or something they say is your board of advisors. No matter like if it's nutrition, movement, it could be financial guidance, like whatever it is, you should have somebody in your corner that you can always go to, who you know is going to be a strong sounding board for you to bounce ideas off of and get some feedback.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So where have you been like in this last year? Like any major changes?
I have this year, 2022 has been the first year that I've really been training and competing for events. So I come from a power athlete background, like track, basketball, football. In track, I wasn't doing the endurance running, like anything more than 400, I was out. So I was doing high jump, long jump, 300-meter hurdles, that type of jam. So now this year, I've picked up more running. So a lot of firsts this year. I ran a 5K, 8K, and a 10K. And I've gotten much more involved in the hybrid athlete space. So these events that I compete in, High Rocks and DecaFit, are basically a combination of functional exercises that you have to complete and then running as well. Like the distances will vary, but those are the two main things that they are made of. So this year I competed in my first High Rocks earlier this year. So now at this point, I've ran 5K, 8K, 10K, and I've competed in 2 High Rockses. And then I competed in DecaFit in July at Navy Pier, which I qualified to compete at the DecaFit World Championships out in Atlantic City. I just got back from there a couple of weeks ago. But that was just an awesome experience. And again, that's something like you told me I would have to travel out to the East Coast to go compete in this event at the beginning of the year. Like that, it would have seemed so far away, but I've definitely come a long way. And that's just all with consistency and attention to detail in my training. And no matter what it is, like the running, endurance running definitely has transferable skills to these hybrid competitions that I train for. So
Tell us more about that experience you just mentioned.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was very cool to see the competitors like in your wave and learn more about their backgrounds, what they do, where they travel from, how they got to be in this position, like competing against you at that stage, which was really cool. So I definitely learned a lot from a networking standpoint there, just seeing what people do to get to that position. And then it was a ton of fun. Like the actual event, like the feeling of competing is something that I really enjoy. So these competitions, High Rocks and Decafit, are right up my alley. So I definitely plan on doubling down with those and sticking with them.
That was going to be my next question was, do you see this in your future? So it sounds like yes.
Yes, absolutely. I did sign up for a half marathon in January, which is pretty wild. Like that's by far the longest distance that I'll train to run for. It's also in January in Chicago, so that's like crazy enough in itself. But yeah, the running has grown on me. The hybrid competitions and hybrid training is definitely my main jam, though.
Is that the F3 marathon
It is.
or half
Yes.
marathon?
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
crazy. Get ready
I
to
know.
bundle up.
I know.
When I was coaching at Lincoln Park High School for cross country and track, we volunteered for that half marathon, and let me tell you, it was freezing.
I know. So that's going to be a pretty crazy experience, but I'm looking forward to it. So that is the first thing I have coming up in 2023, and then I have High Rocks at Navy Pier in February, so that'll be coming up shortly after. But the endurance cardio training will benefit me for High Rocks. So again, those two will go hand in hand. So
very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now where I'm at in this year, so I've been competing a lot more in all these competitions, races, so on and so forth. And I did transition again, staying in the health and wellness industry, but I transitioned from the corporate wellness position that I had where I was working full time, and then also at the studio gym that I was at coaching part time. I stepped away from both of those and now am a full time coach at the Garage Chicago out in Ukrainian Village. So coach there, and I'm the director of marketing for them. And then I'm an independent trainer as well. So I train out of Hi-Fi, which is where Sophie sees me.
Woo woo.
There we go. Yeah.
So I want to bring up behavior change. It seems like you're pretty good at that. Can you give us any tips on that or background?
Yes, absolutely. My studying for my behavior change certification was something that I really enjoyed. It was something that I gravitated towards, and behavior change is applicable to every aspect of our daily lives. So even outside of nutrition and exercise here, it's everything, just what you do on a day-to-day basis with your consistency. So that is something that I work on a lot with clients, even giving them habit trackers where they can physically check off like the days that they do complete the habit that they're looking to progress on is extremely beneficial. But that's one of the certifications that I know is going to benefit me, like even beyond my training years. So that is something that I'll always be able to carry with me.
When did you get that certification?
That was earlier this year, I believe, as well.
Very cool.
I want to say in the spring, I passed that exam. So that has been relatively newer. But again, that's something people can get very caught up in the actual act it is they're looking to improve on, like whatever it is, if it's nutrition or exercise, but there's just so much more that goes into it, from when you're at the pre-contemplation stage all the way to maintenance, where like somebody who has been working out religiously for years now is just maintaining. So a lot of different things to account for. And I think 3 things that I tell clients to work on here in when it comes to behavior change when they're just getting started out of the gates is number 1, just focus on one thing. A lot of times we want to go wild and focus on several different things, whatever the case may be. But if you can really lock in on one and focus on that day after day, week after week here, and hold yourself accountable, that is going to be very beneficial for you. So 1 is focusing on one. 2 is, I kind of touched on already, having the habit trackers where you can physically check off the action that you completed. It does something differently and it resonates with you more when you actually have to do that. Like, you can say it like, oh, I want to do this, but it doesn't carry any weight. You have to actually see this every day, like put it on your fridge, put it on your desk, put it on your mirror, whatever the case may be. And then you're checking those off to hold yourself accountable. So something as simple as that. And then 3 is another easy one. It's definitely not groundbreaking. It's just reference groups. So like building my board of advisors, that is something that I think everybody should do. So you're going to pick up on the habits of those that you surround yourself with. Like all this running, like my friends are more into running. They're like I'm like reluctantly signing up for these things, but here I am doing all the running. So now I'm doing a lot more running thanks to those guys, but I would say just your reference groups. So
Yeah. And behavior change, I mean, I think it's always important, but now, especially with people like setting goals for the new year and all that type of stuff, just really taking that into consideration, as you had said, like taking one thing at a time. Because I think this time of year, we kind of, like you said, make it really big. So taking that step back.
Right. Or people may be gearing up for the turn of the new year for those New Year's resolutions, but I would just suggest not overwhelming yourself and focusing on one thing and just being consistent with it. But even more so, just to double down on the reference group, surrounding yourself with people whose values align with yours. Like if you're at a social setting and it's maybe there's alcohol involved, do you actually want to drink that drink? But are you just holding it and drinking it so that you don't have to deal with any so-called backlash or anxiety that may come with it? So that's something that you get more comfortable with in time. But I think surrounding yourself with positive individuals and people who are on your team. I know the journey that I've been on when I started coaching at the Garage Chicago, Gina Cafano, the owner, is like incredible. So I've been able to flourish there because I know she's the head of the ship and I'm very trustworthy of her, and it's reciprocated to me too. So the whole roster of coaches there, the community, the members, it's truly special, and it starts at the top with her. So I know she is another mentor that I'm very thankful to have in my corner. So those 4, I would say, they mean so much to me: Josh, Jason, Brett, and Gina. So I'm not here without those guys.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question for you. Kind of going back to behavior change. Do you you had mentioned like a habit tracker, but in terms of resources for individuals who maybe want to like learn more about behavior change, or that's a new topic to them, do you have any like books or other resources that individuals could look into?
Yes. As far as behavior change, I read 2 books over the pandemic that really resonated with me. And I would say like they're not cut out for everybody. If it's your vibe, like you'll probably stick with it and get a lot out of it. But if it's not, maybe hit or miss. So take it for what it is. I read David Gogginson's book, Can't Hurt Me. I thought that was very powerful, especially to me. I got a lot out of it because he's overcome a lot of adversity. And at the time, I read it while I was going through my adversity. So he really spoke to me. And then Tim Grover has a book called Winning. He's another great one. He was Michael Jordan's personal trainer. A lot of great tips from that. Some other go-to references that are Chicago-based for behavior change. Matt Mayberry, he does leadership seminars here throughout the country, but follow him. He's a great resource. And then for health and wellness, I would say Live Better as well. The guys, Jason and Brett, those are very solid. So those couple books, and then those references.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And where can people find you if people want to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I am on Instagram and it's just Ryan Johnson _fitness. There's like, who knows how many Ryan Johnsons out there. So you just gotta look for Ryan Johnson _fitness. And then I should be up there, but that's where I'm most active. And then if you're in Chicago, I coach at the Garage Chicago out in Ukrainian Village. Come do a class with me, or we can do one-on-one personal training. I do that more central in the city as well, in River North at High Five with Sophie too. So at the Garage, we do a ton of cool events. We have a lot of fun things going on. So I know upcoming here, we have an in-person volunteer day with Cradles to Crayons, which is a nonprofit organization that benefits kids in the city of Chicago here. So wintertime, I know top of mind here is making sure that they have the proper clothing to stay warm. So jackets, hats, gloves, whatever it may be. They are very appreciative. And our volunteer day is going to be taking place on Friday, December 9th from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. So if you are interested or would like to join, you can certainly shoot me a message. And then if you would like to donate, you can certainly do so as well. I'll be sure to post a link in my bio, and then we can also attach a link to this podcast as well.
Amazing. Well, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate all of the info and you sharing everything.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you, Ryan.